Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video review, take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, Samsung's latest flagship phone, which finds a place for a very familiar tool. Did you miss the Galaxy Note? Because if you did, it's back. Now, it doesn't have the Galaxy Note name. Samsung hasn't confirmed whether or not they're going to kill that or not, but they've effectively brought back the same type of device. And the Galaxy S22 Ultra, to me, it's still a Galaxy S phone, but it clearly shows what I was calling for this from years ago, that Samsung needed to combine the S and the Note lines together, and this is what it looks like. And to me, it looks good. This is, objectively speaking, I think this is a very, very pretty device. The back is really, really nice. That matte back that they've been going with is perfect. It has a bit of a sheen to it, but it doesn't invite fingerprints the way a really glossy back does. You don't get the same camera bump that you had before this time now. The lenses do protrude. There's a little bit of a frame around the lenses, partly to protect the glass, but it's also, I think it also kind of looks nicer too. We'll see if they flatten it completely next year. But the key thing, of course, on top of all of the other minimal physical changes, is that we got this guy now built in. So the S Pen now comes built into the phone. Last year, if you might recall, the Galaxy S21 Ultra allowed you to use the S Pen, but it didn't come with the phone. You had to buy that separately, and you have to get a case that might have a holster for it. In this case, it's just like the Galaxy Note used to be. It's got a holster inside the phone, and that's it. The features are also the same. Now, I'm going to talk about the pen here because it does change the usability of the device. Yes, there was the compatibility before, but in this case, it's far more integrated. If you'll recall, the previous Galaxy Note phones, the last one being the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, for instance, had air actions. So you could pull out the pen and you could actually control certain things with gestures, right? Or the button could, even from previous Note phones, the button could like snap a photo and control other things, certain other apps as well. All that applies here. So if you are to use the pen for gestures, you're using it to control photos, things like that, you can do that with the Galaxy S22 Ultra as well. It all works the same. Notes, screenwriting, you want to jot down something on a screenshot. I mean, all the stuff that you would have expected from a Galaxy Note, especially the last one, all of it applies here. To me, that does change the way the device kind of functions relative to other Galaxy S phones. The Galaxy S22 Plus and S22, for example, do not support the pen. Even if you were to get it separately, it won't work. So this is the only phone right now, at least for the S22 lineup, that has the full S Pen support. So that already puts it in a different bracket, I would argue, than the other two phones. The functionality is improved in the sense that Samsung also may lower the latency of the screen to the pen. So now you put you just want to write something down, you want to jot something down, you'll notice that it feels just a little more responsive. Samsung says it's at least like a threefold increase. It felt like more like a doubling to me, but again, I think that's subjective to some degree. Either way, when you write on the screen, it does feel more natural, and that is saying something because I feel like the pen has come a long way in that regard. If you are, for example, you're coming from an older Note, like a Note 9 or something like that, and then you go to this, I think you'll notice a much bigger difference as far as how much less latency there is relative to the way it used to be. That's just me, but I feel like when I compare what I had before with previous Note phones and then this, it just feels a lot smoother here. The pen stands out partly because other things don't. And what I mean by that is that this is not a huge difference from the S21 Ultra, both in functionality and also in purpose, in my opinion. What I mean by that is, now we know that Samsung put the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor. That's largely for Canada and the US, by the way. The Exynos processor is in other markets. But that processor with a 4 nanometer, I think it's too soon to know what the chipset can do, and the phone is going to function flawlessly, really. Like anything you want to do on this phone is going to be fine. You want to game on it, you want to stream media, you want to message, you want to run, multiple apps. I mean, it can handle all that pretty easily. So I never encountered any real performance issues with this, and I didn't expect to. So you won't run into any problems as far as whether or not it can do something for you. Where I think things get a little bit tricky is with the battery life. Now, normally I leave battery life to the end when I do a video review, but I'm going to mention it now because it's not great. So I don't know if it's the chipset. I don't know if there's something else going on with the software. I'm not entirely sure. I have to feel like it's a combination of factors here because the battery life is not amazing on this phone. Compared to the previous S21 Ultra or even the S20 Ultra before that, I feel like there is something missing on the battery life. It just drains faster than I expected it would. I often have to charge this at the end of the night, which is kind of rare, I think, for a flagship phone at this level. But that's what it is. Now, Samsung could improve that, possibly with future software updates. I expect those to come. And that they might improve that, maybe make it a little more efficient, more optimized. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. But for now, battery life is one of those things you're gonna have to sacrifice a little to get everything else. One of the key things that's changed, of course, is with the cameras. Not on paper necessarily, because if you looked at a spec sheet and you compared this with the S21 Ultra, you would think, I don't get it. Something hasn't, what's changed here? The hardware is largely the same. So the image sensors for the most part pretty much are the same, including the main HM3 sensor for the main camera. So it still is the 108 megapixel that you remember from the previous models. The difference being that Samsung says this one performs better. Okay, so now I'm not going to get into the metrics as to what percentages or whatever, because it's hard to quantify that even in the field, but I will say this. It does produce better photos, generally speaking, whether it's in 108 megapixels or the 12 megapixels, which is the default, by the way. So if you are going to shoot in the full resolution, you got to select that like you did before. Otherwise, it's going to shoot at 12 megapixels. Now, the key thing here to remember is that one of Samsung's purposes in doing this was to make full resolution photos better in other conditions. Before, you'd have to shoot in really good conditions, like outdoors, daylight, things like that, to get the best results. Now, Samsung says you can shoot at night or in low light and get very similar results. That really depends. I think if you're shooting a well-lit building, for example, yes, the results will look really nice and actually better than I would have expected. But if the scene that you're shooting is not that well lit, you don't have light coming in to kind of help draw more out of the shot, I think the results are not going to be as good. So it is a really relative thing. This is a very sliding scale, if I can put it that way, because I think it largely depends what you're shooting. So I expect Samsung will try to improve that also with software updates, but bear in mind that not all camera updates necessarily affect everything at the same time. So we may have to wait longer for that, but we'll have to wait and see. The rest of the camera array is pretty similar to what you would have had before. The telephoto lenses, there's two. There's one that's a 3x optical zoom, the other with a 10x. Very good shots, actually, especially in good settings or good conditions. Really good shots, actually. Even the 30x hybrid zoom, not bad. I'm not a fan of it, but it's not a huge fan of it, I should say, but it's okay. It's pretty good. The 100x space zoom, still terrible. So I don't bother with it. Now, the ultra-wide lens I found to be the most similar to previous phones. So it shoots largely the same way. I didn't notice a huge difference whether there was better gathering of light or anything like that. I felt like it was kind of along the same lines as before. So don't expect dramatically different results if you're going to shoot with that lens, but they are still good, especially if you're doing it the right way. I should mention, as part of the camera situation here, is an app called Expert RAW. Expert RAW is a Samsung app. You're going to find it in the Galaxy Store, not in Google Play. That app allows you to shoot at full 16-bit resolution, not at 108 megapixels, by the way, just in 16-bit RAW. So you're shooting 16-bit RAW, and you can then edit the photos afterwards on an app like Lightroom or Snapseed. So the purpose behind it I like. This is where the chip comes in. So the Snapdragon chip, along with some of the other hardware that's inside here, is helping to produce that photo. You'll notice that when you shoot with Expert RAW, it takes a little longer for the photo to actually take, like to actually snap. And then when you preview it after, that takes a while too. It is not the mode that you're going to use if you plan on, snapping shots quickly. Don't do it. Go to Pro mode in the Samsung camera app for that. Expert RAW is not for that. On the video side, I would say that there have been some improvements. The auto framing mode coincidentally uses the ultra wide lens. And you can it'll sort of focus on someone who's entering or leaving, and when they enter the frame. It's kind of a cinematic effect, kind of cool. I don't know that it's applicable to a lot of different situations, but hey, it's worth trying out. Beyond that, you have supposedly better low light and night shooting. If you're shooting video, regardless of the frame rate. There is an auto frame rate feature that comes in too, where it'll sort of lower or raise the frame rate depending on the conditions that you're shooting in. So if it's really good daylight, it won't drop it. May raise it. That's up to you. Really, I feel like I would rather control features like that, which is why I generally shoot more with Pro Video, where those features don't apply. So if you're shooting with Pro Video, the auto framing, like those don't apply when you're using Pro Video. So just bear that in mind. I'm just gonna sum up quickly about this phone. I've already mentioned that it is very much like a Galaxy Note Redux type of phone. So I would say that you don't need to upgrade to this if you have a Galaxy S21 Ultra. It is gonna function in largely the same way, especially right now. I don't know about months down the line, but right now it really does work a lot the same way. And I would say also that if you even have like a Galaxy Note or a Galaxy S20 Ultra, you could upgrade to this, but I think it depends what you're looking for. If you want some better camera performance, you have a 2 or 3 year old phone, I get it. You'll notice the performance difference here. And of course, it's always nice to have the pen to shoot with too. But other than that, I think this is the kind of phone that you're getting because you feel that you have graduated to it. So maybe you've had an older phone, or maybe you need a phone that you want the pen, you want a better camera, whatever it is, there's got to be a reason, I think, for you to go with something this premium. And that's my review of the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.